Hey, all, this is Kevin Chapp. I'm going to do some video commentary on the first season of Wild Foods here and start with the pilot. And let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be watching the show, and hopefully we can link it all up with the show as we get going here. But yeah, just to get started, this pilot is the culmination of about 8 years of work, and we began shooting this actually, testing in 2001. So as you're looking over some of these shots, in fact, this is a melding of several different shoots that we did in the opening montage. This shot is actually of my family's farm, my aunt and uncle in South Royalton, Vermont, and those are my two cousins playing the younger me and the younger my brother, my brother Brian, and those are my two cousins, Gideon and Oliver, is playing me as a young boy. So kind of fun to have that family connection in here, and it felt like really important, especially because we're using the backdrop that my brother and I grew up with. Yeah, here in the Stony Brook Valley, which is where I'm calling in from right now. So yeah, again, all shots of my family's farm and some of my favorite foraging places within the Stony Brook Valley and the Chattagee, and the metaphor for the old mine going in and looking for that gold mine was my setting off journey to discovering wild foods, and now has become kind of a metaphor not only for my connection to nature, but also the development of the show. So yeah, it was a really fun sequence to bring to life on camera, and I felt, or we felt creatively, that this was going to be a really poignant opportunity to yeah, draw in the audience and create a little mythos as well, along with a docu-series. So we think that, using that mythological structure can add a little bit more depth to what is essentially a food and travel show. Um, but really, at its heart, this is an environmental show masquerading as a food and travel show. Um, so we're going to get into the heart of it here, and exploring. Again, this is all shot in the Chattagee, which is that tract of wildland that I live and grew up living adjacent to, about 100 to 120,000 acres of undeveloped land here in central Vermont, and it really shaped my story growing up, my connection to nature, my intrigue, my curiosity with nature, and I hope that that comes through in this beginning section when we head out to forage. Obviously, this is all real, all authentic. Of course, I scouted with some friends before we started filming, just to see if there was going to be some things out there. But we didn't really know the day that we went out whether we were actually going to find any wild foods. And and that's a constant question that I get. Well, what happens if you don't find anything? So here's a beautiful sulfur shelf, and one of the first ingredients that I interacted with. But the answer that I always give them is nature is so abundant. If you know what you're looking for, you'll always find something. Now, it may not be the thing that you're actually in search of, but I've never come home empty-handed. So yeah, so that's always my answer is, it may not be the thing you're looking for, but sometimes those are the best things that you find. There's always a lesson, there's always a moment, there's always a wild food or an interaction with an animal that really brings the wild back home to yourself, and also into your own household, which is where I'm speaking to you from right now. So yeah, so sulfur shelf, an amazing ingredient, and again, a great first time forager's mushroom there. So we shot this in fall, over successive seasons. The primary principal photography was done in 2023. So you can see, there's still a development process happening here. And we didn't really know yet what the show was going to be. We had a general idea or structure, but trying to fit all of this information into a 26 or 26 and a half minute episode felt like a Herculean task. And so this pilot in particular took over 10 days to film. Actually, if we consider B-roll pickup with the kids and all the additional shooting, it likely would be more like 12 or 14 days. We can actually capture an episode of Wild Foods now in about 5 to 6 days. Maybe some B-roll on either side of that. But this was really an exploratory as much as it was the filming of a pilot. And I'm just really happy with the way that it came together. Um, yeah, and we're going into my favorite Hericium hunting ground here. This is lion's mane, and just a fantastic wild species that I've been cooking with since I was a kid. So, and this again is a great first time foragers mushroom because there are three different types of mushroom, but they all look similar, and there is no poisonous doppelgangers for this one too. So, yeah, so the exploration of this and really sitting down after we came out of the field with my then lead editor Ben Kaldfeld, who is now our frontline editor. He takes care of making sure that all of the stuff that is the most salient makes it into final cut. Um, we sat together for months in post, actually here in Stockbridge, and we're just exploring what was making sense, what was resonating, how it was all coming together, and figuring out our three beat structure, which you're in beat one right now, which is the outdoor adventure, which is meant to bring the audience in, paint some beautiful landscapes and really inspire through nature, and also go on a great adventure. The second part, which we'll come up to after the cook, is the heartbeat or the conservation theory aspect of the show. And you'll see this reflected throughout this season, that we start in the forest or the field, go on an adventure and really introduce the inspiration and the beauty of nature, and then try to culminate with a cook. That's not always the case, but some capstone of that culminating adventure. And then we move on to the conservation behind how do we protect these places. Who are we learning from? The educational, the conservation, the environmental, maybe the food theory. So some expect to learn something, in the next beat. And then, of course, we go on to the food beauty, which all food and travel shows need to have, which is a really fun part of the experience. And we usually try to save that to the end of the shoot, especially because it means that not only I get to eat and drink, but the crew does as well. The crew and cast get to eat. So we usually try to shoot our celebratory food beauties at the end of each episode. Um, this one in particular is just a beautiful spot up in No Town, Chattagee area. It's a campsite that I've camped at, hundreds of times as a kid, with a beautiful waterfall in back. And it was really meaningful. Actually, my father set up this campsite for us while we were out foraging all day, and to come in and have this all set up for me just to come in and do what I do, which is, cook over open fire, was really special, and connect all these places that I've been foraging and harvesting from since I was a kid. Really a dream come true for me. And yeah, and I think that comes through in this cook, which is just full of passion and excitement. And and in fact, they don't always come out this pretty, but we got lucky on this day. So um, yeah, great. A great way to share food with people and showcase the prolificness and bounty of nature. And certainly log on to wildfoodsnetwork.com. We have all the recipes there from the season, and it gives you a chance to engage with both the food and some of my conservation theory and some of the behind the scenes footage too. So yeah, I think we're kind of moving forward here into the field and working with our indigenous folks, the Nullhagen Band of the Coosac. This is Chief Stevens, who's become a really dear
So they say,
friend,
wow,
advisor, and spiritual
I've
leader
come to win, not
throughout
knowing
this whole
that Native
process of
people
8 years.
are nomadic and they
Um,
create
he
agroforestry so that
really
way
does have
we
a
can use
good
up
beat
all the
on
resources and we
both
promote it.
the environmental food sovereignty rematriation piece of it, but also the political piece of how do we preserve indigenous wisdom and continue to promote, our brothers and sisters of indigenous heritage, who really hold the keys to some of
A
this
forest garden is, in my
indelible
opinion, a
wisdom that
relationship
still
with the land
exists
that
when you live
promotes
in
food
close proximity
for
to
us
nature
and
and the
for
land.
the
And
animals for
here's my
all
friend John
life.
Hunt as well.
The earth
I
decides
actually
if it's
grew up
growing in a
in the same
waterway to
class with
produce it as
a
much
set
as
of
it
his cousins
can.
here in
It's
Stockbridge.
sort of a belief
And
that if
John
humans
is just a
deviate from it, that
wellspring of
humans can
knowledge.
actually have
He
a
does
positive impact
training
and
seminars
increase
and
the
nature
abundance
walks
of
and
food.
foraging workshops. And
In
yeah,
some
just a
ways,
great resource, and
experience
really
of
does
traveling in
live
the
what he
woods,
teaches.
even if I
So
don't
it was
find
great to go out
anything,
there.
just to
And actually,
spend some
we
time with the
had just
land.
shown up again. This is one of those great moments coming up here when we discover this maitake. This was a true
Yeah,
discovery.
now we get to
I
make
just
an
told him to
effort.
meet me
It's
by
worth the
Shelburne
effort. It's
Vineyards
important to make
because
the
I know this
effort.
tract of old growth
When we look at
forest,
things, we look at
and
things
we didn't know what we were going
other
to find. I
ways
knew
than
there
we
was some
humans
hickory
of
nuts,
the land,
some
where a lot of
some
Europeans adopted the
butternut
mindset of being
as
dominion
well
over.
as
It
still
so
were there,
happens
and
that
then
we
of
often
course
do
oak.
share with other
So we were
living
just going to
things,
talk about
other
tree nut
trees,
species.
animals,
During a card
themselves. And
change,
I
I
think as
actually
people got
moved a little
away
bit
from
further
looking
down
more
the
at
the woodland
connection to the
and came
source, whether
across
it be
this
their food
beautiful
sources,
maitake that we're
whether it
about
be
to discover.
the land
And
or
this
the animals
truly
or
is
other
just
sources, I think
a
we'll be in much
natural
better shape to save this
discovery,
planet for
and
our
so
future.
perfectly outlined the abundance of nature. So we felt really blessed this day.
Oh,
And
okay.
this is all genuine
Beautiful.
excitement
Yeah, that was
about,
making maitake.
yeah, here it
What a
is.
perfect example of the
Nature
prolificness of
has
nature, right?
provided not
Yeah,
only
yeah.
the food,
Forest
but also
trees.
provided this beautiful
My
filming
students
moment
started helping them out, and they're
that
just
helped us
producing so
along in the
much food.
creation of this show. So this happened a lot throughout
New England is going to be more
this
important as climate
experience.
changes, and there's
Every
going to be
episode seems
more and more
that
fire
there's
season
at least one
Southwest.
or
So lots of
two
crop
little
may go
winks
wrong.
from nature or the
If the
universe,
priority is bringing
kind
indigenous
of cheering us
goods
on
to compete
and
in a
helping us
global
out when we
market,
need it the most. So
maybe the focus should be more
um,
on
this
agroforestry
is
and
a great
climate because New England's going to be very
addition that
important
Chief
food
Stevens makes.
sources.
That
So why not get
Vermont
started
is one
here
of those
now and start keeping
inspiring
those
landscapes
things
because we
and
do
also
live in
diversify
such
to
close
keep our
proximity to
farmers
nature.
competitive?
So, and this is my family's farm, real time, modern day. My uncle Peter, who really has lived what he's preached and practiced what he's preached. He's one of the best farmers I've ever met in my entire life. He can walk onto a completely foreign landscape and read it in just 2 seconds, tell you what's been happening there for 100 years. And yeah, and shares the
It,
maybe the most
it's
important
making
part of the show.
the reason we lose all
That
these little
farmers are
farmers
having a
is we
really
can't
difficult time
compete
making a
with
living here,
commercial
and
fertilizer. You can't compete
and
with
the one, especially the ones that are
price
doing
of
it
the
right.
efficiency
They're doing good
of
by
the
the
pig
land.
food.
They're doing good by nature, but they can't do well. They can't afford to stay on their land, and we're losing hundreds of farms, thousands of farms across the country every year. Because of this kind of concept that scalability needs to be applied to every single sector of the economy,
Yeah,
and we're
it's the
losing
uneasiness in the
crops
land
out of the
with
cycle. We're losing
governments
farms
not
out
being
of the system.
connected. And that's
We're
what it
losing
comes
the
down to.
wisdom that
Every
comes
walk
from
of
these old
life.
farmers or generational farmers.
First of all, you
And this is
tell me what
something
the
that we
problem
really
is.
set out to
What do
try
you
to
want
correct. A
of
lot of these
modernization of
really
farming? What does it
intelligent
really mean?
farmers that
Bigger
we're
farms,
losing
you
their
look at
knowledge,
them
but
and you'd say,
they don't get the
how
chance
many
to speak.
species live in
It's
that?
the big farmers
There's
or
not very much.
the chemical
Biodiversity
companies
there.
that really have
And
to
that
say the
connectedness
huge
is
food
really an
concerns.
important part of
And we felt that there was a
farming.
gap in the way that we present our food to the national audience. And Wild Foods was really designed to provide that platform for farmers, food purveyors,
We're
indigenous
getting rid
people,
of a lot of diversity
everybody who's
in your
really
insect
contributing to kind
population,
of
the
preserving
organisms in the soil that
natural
are
inputs
more
in our food system,
complicated than our life, our bodies.
community
It's
building,
it's depleted food.
nutrition,
It
um,
makes
conservation, mitigation, rematriation. That's what wild foods really is about. And I think being able to share some of my uncles and family's wisdom, this is what I grew up with and around. It felt really meaningful in this episode. So I'm glad my uncle has since had a stroke, and unfortunately, probably wouldn't have been able to provide the same information that he did in this episode now. So it's just wonderful to be able to preserve his wisdom before he passes on. So um, here's Sterling College. We worked with Sterling pretty closely on this, and Chief Stevens and Sterling College have been engaged in this Seeds of Renewal project, and the Donland Gardens, which is trying to rematriate and propagate indigenous seeds, so that we can preserve them for future generations to enjoy. Unfortunately, Sterling has become, since we filmed this, another casualty. In the uh, I guess what would we call it? The consolidation of education, the scalability of agriculture. This small liberal arts college that's really focused on sustainability and regenerative agriculture, unfortunately, just couldn't make ends meet, um, because they're not tethered in with the big chemical companies, the big GMO companies, and I won't list them here, but it's how most of our agricultural institutions are making it work now. Is by taking endowments and handouts from your big chemical companies, and so that's just continuing to create a negative feedback cycle where the folks that are being trained, in university level, are coming out believing that chemicals are a necessary requirement to feeding America, and it's just not true. We're already throwing out over 40% of the food that we raise in this country, and yet we're not meeting 50% of the demand that we have for organic, local, and wild foods. So there's no lack of abundance, and there never was. But what we are doing is we are poisoning our lands, which will continue to produce less and less, which will then embolden chemical companies to continue to push more and more chemical fertilizers. So it fits right in with their agenda. But it was never, farming was never a an extractionary process up until very recently. It's only been within the past 100 years that we've industrialized our food system, and much to the detriment of our health, our communities, our farmers, and our environment. And I love what Sterling College was doing, and I hope one day will be doing again for us. But many other colleges, they working with the Wendell Berry Farm in Kentucky, and Wendell Berry Farm continues to do great work, great training for young people and adult learners. There's some great opportunities out there to get engaged if you're interested. And here's another example of that, which is the Intervale, which is in Burlington, Vermont, and acting as a farm incubator, as well as a living classroom, and farmland, for Vermont's biggest city. And so that's really inspiring when we think about, more and more people are living in urban areas now, which certainly act as a hub for food sales, but they certainly can't grow the crops that are needed to run a big city. Here we're seeing that urban gardening can actually be really not only beneficial but essential to food security, to health and nutrition, and just to beauty, really, and education. This isn't just a place to grow food. It's a place to come and enjoy nature. They have nature trails. They've got bird watches. As I said, classrooms, concerts. It's a real connector for the city of Burlington, and many other small cities, and even large cities, New York City being one of them. is doing a lot of this too now, and whether that's a rooftop garden or even a fire escape tomato plant. There's lots of ways that even somebody that's living in an apartment in New York City can get involved in the food system. You can support, local agriculture even in densely populated areas of this country. So, and that's really inspiring. This show is so much about hope, and really celebrating success, not trying to point fingers, not trying to um, defame anybody. What we're trying to do is we're trying to celebrate the successes, especially where nature is concerned. And Intervale really articulates that, I think, really well, along with all the folks that are featured in this episode. So, um, yeah, just some great wisdom here. And again, beautiful foods in the farmers market on Pine Street in Burlington, which happens every Saturday from Memorial Day through late October, before the snow flies. So, yeah, there's a whole lot that I could say about Intervale, but that was a real rundown piece of property, which actually my business partner and executive director Joe Bookchin's family was really instrumental in reclaiming and beginning that farming program called the Intervale, along with Will Rapp and many other people. So, and now, our final scene, which I articulated, the food beauties, Cara Tobin being a food beauty herself, relocating from Boston, Oleana there, which is just a super famous restaurant. But she decided that she was going to come right here to where she was getting all of these beautiful foods and make this amazing food experience for folks called Honey Road. Next time you're in Burlington, everybody, I highly recommend that you give it a try. This is Tastes of the Mediterranean, which include northern Italy and Morocco, and but it's so amazing to see these international foods being cooked with local wild foods, and being able to forage for her and see my foods that I interact with in the forest and the field, on plates, of this James Beard Award winner, is just such a pleasure. And every time I go there, it's just a different sensory experience, and just a lot of pride in being able to contribute to the vision that Kara and her partners have there. So, yeah, this is such a good point. Like, food cultures, the way that food culture is built is what she just articulated, and maybe one of the reasons why we don't have such an identifiable food culture of America yet is, we have a borrowed food culture. We think about Chinese or Italian or French cuisine. Um, this idea of local, this idea of community-based cooking, of sharing meals, this was integral in communities across the world, and it was integral here for quite a long time. Again, we've gotten away from it, but folks like Kara and many others are bringing that back, and I think America is going to become the next great food revolution or cuisine. Like, instead of hot dogs and grilled cheese, we have an opportunity because we are such a rich agrarian landscape of where we can really expand our imprint on a global stage of what American food really means. I think it starts here, in these beautiful landscapes that we still have here in America, that are rich, prolific, and abundant, with wild foods, and history. There's a there's a little trick the next time you're doing a wild dinner with your friends or family. Make it crispy. They'll go for it. So, yeah, it really is. The Northeast is really inspiring, as are so many other landscapes around the country. This season, we're going to go on adventures to Maine, the coastline of Maine, and harvest seafood and seaweed, and go to Montana and ride with
We eat to
cowboys.
get
We go to
food.
the Southwest in
It's
Arizona
wild food.
and talk with some
There's
of
really no
the indigenous
human
folks
going
there,
out to be able to
rematriating
get connected to
um,
their food
uh,
source, even if
different
it's a
seed
little
varietals
ancient.
and dryland farming.
If
Um,
you think
you know,
about the history of
but
Vermont,
I still
that this
feel
was
really
a
blessed to be a
forested. There
Vermonter, to be
wasn't
a
a lot of forest
Northeasterner,
left at one point.
and be able
And
to
then Vermont
interact with the
switched,
folks
and
that are
now we're
making this
mostly
place
forested,
such a
right? So
special
there is
environment.
hope. There is a
Um,
way
and
to
really,
reconnect
at the
and
end of the day, this
change
show
the
isn't
outcomes of
just
what is
a food
happening.
travel show, and it's not just an environmental show. It
And
really
the
is a memoir
forests and the
for me
wild
in this
foods
development
sustained our
of,
people for
um,
thousands of
you
years.
know, my
Why
family's
would we think it
history and
wouldn't change that
connection
now?
to this place. And there's no better way to do that than through food. I grew up on a small farm. My cousins and my uncle are farmers, and I've seen firsthand the challenges they're facing, the American farmer. And through that, what we're hoping to do here is really open the eyes and open a constructive dialogue whereby we can change some things that I think are going very wrong in our food system. So I'm just so grateful for all of you out there that are watching. I'm so grateful for the folks that we've already been able to attract to this platform, and so grateful for the folks that haven't tuned in yet, that are just tuning in for the first time. It really does take all of you. We're really excited to be on Create as well, being welcomed in to that family now too. And we're hoping this is just the beginning. There's a lot to say about foods in this country. There's a lot of adventures to still be had, a lot of information to share, and a lot of good food as well. So thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you in the wild.
Wild Foods is made possible by generous support from the Vermont International Film Foundation, bringing the world to Vermont through film and supporting filmmakers in Vermont and beyond for 40 years. And with support from